Hello, everyone, and welcome to another presentation of our SkillShare series. My name is Amir, Ghiasi, a PhD candidate in mechanical engineering at École Polytechnique University of Montreal. In this presentation, I'm going to give you an introduction to virtual reality and Unity. And so let's get started. Using computers, smartphones, and television is an inseparable part of our life that every day people spend a lot of time looking at their screens to see news, use social media, watch movies, and much more. But virtual reality has changed the way we use screens by creating new and exciting interactive experiences. You may be eager to know what virtual reality is exactly. And so VR, or virtual reality, is the creation of a synthetic, believable virtual world that is made possible by hardware and software. In other words, VR is a computer-generated simulation of a 3D environment that can be interacted with within a seemingly real or physical way by a person using special tools. So, in fact, unlike other computer-created environments, virtual reality places the user inside of an experience instead of viewing a two-dimensional screen in front of them, and put the users immersed in a 3D world that they can interact with VR. And VR is now more affordable and accessible to a larger number of people, So I can summarize the most important features that VR has. It is believable, immersive, interactive, and computer generated. Several years ago, when we talked about virtual reality, people often think of science fiction movies or books, but it is now here in access. However, the origin of VR is not coming back to recent years. If I want to say a brief timeline, in 1838, we experienced our first 3D graphics with a device called a stereoscope, invented by Charles Whitson. Then in 1956, Martin Hillig invented a device called Sensorama. It was a machine equipped with a seat that played 3D movies, gave off odors, and generated vibration to make the experience as live as possible. And several years later, in 1968, something was invented by Ivan Sutherland that called the Sword of Damocles, I think. It was the first head-mounted display that was connected to a computer. It tracked the user's head motion and showed vision with computer-generated graphics of simple 3D objects. And then the progress and improvements have been continuing so far that we have Oculus, HTC Vive, Google Cardboard, or other VR setups. If you look around, you see nowadays there are a lot of applications using VR. Although these applications are rising, I just mentioned some example like game and entertainment, education and training, medicine, holding virtual remote meetings, industry, a visit tour of a museum or gallery, and so on. That using VR in which has been removing the boundaries of the real world. In fact, VR is a solution for experiences that are impractical, dangerous, and expensive in the real world. But what do we need if we want to have a VR experience? I can categorize our requirements into two parts of appropriate software and appropriate hardware. Actually, what hardware is needed for virtual reality to work? I answer that hardware components include lenses, a display panel, some tracking devices, and other accessories like controllers. Lenses help us focus on the displays that are really close to our eyes. They magnify the image to ensure that we can see everything. Display panels are the components that will actually display the image that we are going to see. Some hardware like the Oculus Rift, Oculus Go, or HTC Vive, Vive Pro use embedded display panels. That it means that the display panels are included in the headset. Other hardware uses a phone as the display panels. For example, Google Cardboard, Google Daydream, and Gear use a phone to display the images. Display panels need to have a very high resolution and support low persistence. And in addition, VR requires some sort of tracking in order to work. IMUs are the chips that are used for tracking motion. Mobile platform like Google Cardboard use IMUs to track our rotation as we move the headset around. But the drawback of this type of tracking is that IMUs don't track position. It means that they just track 3 degrees of freedom of rotational movement of the subject. So in order to track our position in the space and have a 6 degree of freedom information, we must use other techniques. For example, Oculus uses a large number of LEDs and external cameras that build a model, and then it tries to fit a 3D model of the headset with the 2-dimensional model. It is of the camera, and also it uses information from an internal IMU to calculate head position. On the other hand, HTC Vive and Vive Pro uses infrared lasers to measure the time it takes to sweep vertically and horizontally across a photosensor. It uses the data it gets an internal IMU to determine where your head is located. And actually in Polar Lab, we work mainly with HTC Vive and Vive Pro headsets. And finally, there are some other accessories with VR setup that like controllers to provide more interaction with the VR environment. But is it enough to just have an experience with VR by having just some hardware devices? For sure, the answer is no. So how can we develop VR? Generally, developing for VR requires using an editor, writing some code, or a combination of both. I myself utilize Unity in my research, which is a very famous, easy to learn and use, and excellent game engine to work with. In fact, Unity as a game engine is a software to develop games in an easy way by getting advantages from 3D rendering, physics, sound, scripting, animation, asset management, and so on. And much of the power of Unity is in its rich scripting language that we use C#. You can use it to customize everything in Unity. And on the other side, when you want to use your HTC Vive VR setup, you need Steam VR installed on your PC to get up and run up the hardware. In fact, Steam VR is like an SDK tool for experiencing VR content on the hardware of your choice, and it supports the Valve Index, HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, and some other VR headsets. And also, Unreal Engine is another option for game engines to choose from, and you can also use the native development tools like OpenGL and Microsoft DirectX. These items provide more flexibility, but the drawback is that they are more complex in working and coding. Now I'm going to say some basic information about Unity. I told you that Unity makes creating VR projects very easier. Actually, after downloading and installing Unity and then creating an account, you will see something like this screen, including several tools, tabs, and windows to create a VR environment. Working. The video? Sorry? Is it the video? No, after that, I'm going to show it on Unity itself. The hierarchy window contains all the objects in our scene. A new scene starts with a main camera and a directional light. In the scene window, you see here in this tab, you see a 3D environment that you create for your game. The game window that is the this one is what players and users will see when you build your app. And the project window here contains all of the files that we will be using, creating, or importing. And when you click on an object in the hierarchy or in the project window, you can configure that game object in more detail manually in the inspector window. And now I'm going to show you the Unity environment very quickly. Let's share this screen. And okay, this screen. Okay. This is the Unity Hub that allows you to choose different version of Unity easily, to have access to your past projects that you have created. And because it actually Unity needs a powerful PC. I did some stuff before to save the time. Just to quickly mention, you can press new project and then choose the 3D to have a 3D environment, choose your project name, and then create project. It will pop up this window. Actually, here you see the hierarchy that are including main camera and directional light. You see here. And also the main camera. Here is the, as I mentioned before, this is the inspector that you can easily configure manually everything regarding the game objects. And also this is the project window. In the scene window, you can create your 3D environment. For example, if you want to have, for example, a cube here. This is the cube. And for example, you can change its properties easily. And so if you press the play button, I hope that it's yeah, you see that the game window is seen here, and it's just a view that you will see in your game. Just take in mind that if you change everything when you are playing the game, it will not be saved in your project. And it's just for checking everything when you are playing the game. And okay, yeah, if you want to, you see here there is the main camera. But if you want to connect your Unity to a VR headset, you need to change this camera to cameras supported by a VR headset. That is the SDK that I mentioned from Steam VR. It takes time, but just to show you, you have to go here, package manager, and then here in project, you have to search Steam VR. I don't know why it's not. Yeah, and then import this SDK to your project. Then you can easily, by doing that, you can easily choose, for example, you can use convert the main camera easily from here to a camera to for the VR, or from the prefabs provided by the Steam VR that will be here in assets. You can easily change the camera to a camera supported that is supporting the VR.